year 1991. On what seemed like an ordinary morning in the peaceful countryside of Piscani, near the city of Pau in eastern Romania, a 63-year-old farmer named Vasile Gorgos prepared to leave home for a short business trip. This wasn't unusual. Vasile was a seasoned livestock trader. He'd taken this same trip countless times before, hopping on a train, heading to a local market, making his deals, and returning home the same day. It was routine. That day, Vasile told his family he'd be back by evening. He had already purchased his train ticket and packed light. Everything seemed normal, but this time, he never came back. As night fell and there was no sign of Vasile, his family grew increasingly worried. By morning, they called the police. Investigators launched a search. They interviewed people at the train station. They searched nearby towns and combed through the fields around his home. But there was nothing. No signs of foul play, no accident, no trace of Vasile. Days passed, then weeks, then months. The case quickly went cold. Despite the family's efforts, despite their growing fears that something terrible had happened, no new evidence ever surfaced. And for the next 30 years, Vasile Gorgos remained a missing person. But then, in the summer of 2021, something absolutely unbelievable happened. On August 29th, a car pulled up in front of the Gorgos family home. It stopped abruptly, and out of the back seat stepped an elderly man, frail, confused, and very familiar. It was Vasile. Now 93 years old, he had suddenly, mysteriously returned, almost exactly 3 decades after the day he vanished. His family stood in shock, speechless. It wasn't just that he had come back, it was how he came back that stunned everyone. Vasile was wearing the exact same clothes he had on when he disappeared in 1991. His train ticket from that day, still in his pocket, as if not a single moment had passed. Even more puzzling, Vasile appeared to be in remarkably good health, aside from mild confusion and minor neurological issues, which doctors said were typical for a man his age. Medically speaking, he had clearly been well taken care of during his disappearance. But where had he been? When his family asked, Vasile calmly responded, "I was home." But when asked what happened over the last 30 years, where he'd lived, who he was with, what he'd done, his mind went completely blank. He remembered his family. He remembered his home. But the entire stretch of 3 decades was gone from his memory, as if erased. Adding to the mystery was the car that dropped him off. Neighbors who witnessed Vasile stepping out said the vehicle sped away the moment he shut the door. No one got a look at the driver or the license plate. The person behind the wheel never said a word. They never even exited the car, just dropped him off and vanished. To this day, no one knows what really happened to Vasile Gorgos. Was he kidnapped and held in secrecy for decades? Did he suffer a severe form of amnesia? Was he part of some undocumented medical or psychological experiment? Or, as some internet theorists speculate, was it something even more bizarre? Something unworldly? Could Vasile have lived in an alternate reality or different timeline altogether? The internet exploded with speculation. Some called it a classic case of dissociative fugue, a rare psychological condition where someone forgets their identity and may even live a completely new life, only to one day return. Others suggested organized abduction, that perhaps Vasile was held by individuals who cared for him, yet deliberately erased his past. Then there are those who believe this case defies all conventional explanation, that Vasile may have been caught in something far stranger than anyone can understand. But perhaps the most haunting question of all is this: why did he come back? Why now? And why, after 30 years, with no memory of what happened, No signs of trauma or neglect. Was he returned home as quietly as he left? For 30 long years, the Gorgos family waited for answers. And when the moment finally came, all they got were more questions. To this day, the case of Vasile Gorgos remains one of the most baffling, unexplained disappearances in modern history. A story that chills even the most skeptical minds. Where was he for 30 years? Who brought him back? And more importantly, why was he ever taken? What if I told you that the woman you call mom isn't your mother? What if I told you that your entire life, your name, your birthday, your childhood memories, was all built on a lie? This is the jaw-dropping story of Kamiya Mobley, a girl who lived 18 years thinking she knew who she was, until she uncovered a secret so shocking it made headlines across the country. This isn't just a kidnapping story. This is the story of a girl who solved her own case. Let's rewind to July 10th, 1998. Kamiya Mobley had just given birth to a beautiful baby girl at the University Medical Center in Jacksonville, Florida. It was supposed to be the happiest day of her life. But just 8 hours later, joy turned into unthinkable horror. A woman, dressed in a nurse's uniform, walked into Kamiya's hospital room. She looked calm and professional, someone you'd trust without question. She even comforted Kamiya like any caring nurse would. But behind that uniform was a plan. When no one was looking, the woman took baby Kamiya from her mother's arms and vanished. No trace, no clues, no cameras to catch her face. The hospital's surveillance system, it wasn't even working that day. The news spread fast. Sketches of the mysterious nurse were plastered everywhere. Police were on high alert. The entire city of Jacksonville searched desperately. But Kamiya was gone. Days turned into months. Months turned into years. Kamiya Mobley and Craig Aiken, Kamiya's parents, refused to give up hope. Deep down, they believed their baby girl was still alive, somewhere out there. And they were right.
Police are hoping a personal plea from the kidnapped baby's family will help.
That would be the happiest thing in the world to me right now, is to hold my baby. And to know that she's not going nowhere else.
That wish from the baby's mother defines the harrowing hunt by local police.
While her real parents searched, Kamiya was living under a new name, Alexis Manigault, with the woman who had taken her, Gloria Williams. To Kamiya, Gloria was just mom. She had no reason to doubt the woman who tucked her in at night and raised her with love. But as Kamiya grew older, the cracks began to show. She realized she didn't have a real birth certificate, no social security number. Anytime Kamiya asked questions, Gloria would dodge them. Something wasn't right, and Kamiya knew it. By the time Kamiya turned 18, her doubts became too big to ignore. She decided to dig deeper. She secretly contacted the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Then, one day, she found it. A missing child poster, the baby in the photo. Looked just like her baby pictures. The name? Kamiya Mobley. The birthday? July 10th, 1998. The resemblance was haunting. And in that moment, Kamiya knew the truth. She was Kamiya Mobley. Kamiya reached out to the authorities. A DNA test confirmed what she already knew. She was the missing baby taken 18 years ago. Gloria Williams was arrested in 2017. In court, it was revealed that Gloria had suffered a miscarriage. In a moment of desperation, she disguised herself as a nurse and stole Kamiya from the hospital. She was sentenced to 18 years in prison. 1 year for every year, Kamiya was kept from her real family. But here's what shocked everyone. Kamiya didn't hate Gloria. She said, "She's still my mother. She raised me. She took care of me." Imagine that. Loving the woman who kidnapped you, while trying to reconnect with the parents who spent 18 years searching for you. It's a heartbreaking and complicated reality that Kamiya is still navigating to this day. Today, Kamiya Mobley is trying to heal. She's building a relationship with her biological parents, while still feeling love for the only mother she ever knew. Her story is a chilling reminder that sometimes the people we trust most may not be who they appear to be.
Do you forgive Gloria Williams?
That's a hard question. I can't even. I don't know. I feel nothing towards her. I feel nothing. I don't. She's not a part of my life. She's not anymore a part of my life. She's in jail. It's nothing she can stop me from doing with my daughter. So she's not a threat to me, or I can't say I don't hate nobody. It's just, she's nothing to me.
18-year-old Julian Hernandez seemed like any other ambitious young man. A senior in high school, he was excelling academically, boasting a strong GPA and a resume filled with extracurricular achievements. His future looked bright, filled with dreams of college and career success. So, when he sat down to apply to several prestigious universities, he expected good news. But instead, every single application was denied. The reason? Discrepancies between his name and social security number. Julian was stunned, confused. How could this be? Desperate to fix the issue, he turned to his guidance counselor. Together, they hoped to uncover what was causing the error and fix it before college deadlines passed. But what they discovered was far more than a paperwork mistake. It would shake the very foundation of Julian's identity and rewrite everything he thought he knew about his life. As they dug deeper, one shocking fact came to light. Julian had been reported missing 15 years ago. Yes, missing, at just 5 years old. Unknowingly, Julian had been living under a false identity his entire life, completely unaware of a tragic past that had been hidden from him for over a decade. Determined to understand the truth, Julian confronted the man he had always known as his father, Bobby Hernandez. At first, Bobby hesitated. He stumbled over his words, clearly trying to dodge Julian's relentless questions. But eventually, he broke down and confessed. Everything was a lie. Heartbroken and confused, Julian took to Reddit, sharing his unbelievable story and pleading for legal advice. He explained how his father had changed both their names and social security numbers, wiping away their history to evade the law. He described how his entire sense of self had crumbled and was slowly being rebuilt as he pieced together who he really was. The revelation only came to light because Bobby couldn't provide tax information when Julian applied to college. Julian even recalled a haunting moment. His father once asked him, "Would you still love me if you found out I did something terrible?" He now understood what that meant. But despite everything, Julian made one thing very clear. He didn't hate his father. He acknowledged that Bobby had raised him well, that he'd always tried to be a good dad. More than anything, Julian wanted to know if there was any way to keep his father out of prison. Not just for himself, but for the sake of his younger sister, who still depended on Bobby. Still, the question remained, why would Bobby Hernandez kidnap his own son? To understand that, we have to go back to 2002. Julian's parents were locked in a bitter custody battle. Eventually, the court awarded full custody to Julian's mother. One day, Bobby asked if he could babysit Julian after kindergarten. Trusting him, she agreed. But when she came home, they were gone. All that remained was a note. In it, Bobby told her he was taking Julian away for good. Bobby fled to Cleveland, Ohio, and started a new life with a girlfriend and her children. For 13 years, they lived as a family. Julian grew up unaware of the truth, unaware that he had a mother who was desperately searching for him year after year. When Julian asked what happened to his mother, Bobby told him she was gone forever. Julian's Reddit post quickly went viral, and people flooded the comments with support and caution. Some sympathized with Julian and admired his compassion, but others reminded him that there are two sides to every story. Bobby claimed he only wanted to be with his son, but Julian's mother believed it was about revenge, that Bobby was trying to punish her for leaving him. Either way, most agreed. Kidnapping your own child, erasing his identity, and making him believe his mother abandoned him is not justifiable. When Julian's school counselor contacted the police, and investigators confirmed the missing child report, his mother got the call she had waited 15 long years to hear. "We found your son." At first, she was skeptical. After so many false alarms, could this really be him? But this time, it was real. She was finally reunited with Julian, overwhelmed with emotion. As for Bobby Hernandez, he was arrested in November 2015. The case quickly gained national and even international media attention. It was unlike anything the courts had seen. Julian, now an adult, clearly loved and well cared for, stood by his father's side. He pleaded for leniency. He didn't want Bobby to go to prison. That made the prosecution incredibly difficult. Still, after a lengthy trial, Bobby was found guilty of abduction, custodial interference, and forgery of documents. He was sentenced to 4 years in prison, followed by 5 years of supervised release. And what about Julian's mother? Despite all the heartbreak, all the false leads, and all the years that passed, she never gave up. She searched tirelessly, believing that one day she'd find her son again. And in the end, she did. They reunited over the holidays, sharing a long overdue embrace, full of both tears and healing. Julian's story is as heartbreaking as it is complex. It raises difficult questions about justice, forgiveness, and the gray areas of love and loss. But one thing is clear. Despite the lies and the betrayal, Julian emerged strong, compassionate, and determined to reclaim his future, no matter how painful his past. Imagine this. You're 23 years old, living your life as usual, when one day you discover you were kidnapped as a baby. This is not a movie plot. This is the real-life story of Carlina White, a woman who solved her own kidnapping after 23 long years. Let's go back to 1987. New York City. Carlina White was just 19 days old when her parents, Joy White and Carl Tyson, rushed her to the emergency room. Their tiny baby girl had a fever caused by a respiratory infection. They did what any parent would do. Trust the doctors, trust the hospital. They believed Carlina would be safe there. But that night, everything changed. A woman, dressed as a nurse, began visiting the family. She wasn't just hanging around. She acted kind, comforting, even supportive. Joy and Carl thought she was just another nurse trying to help. What they didn't know was chilling. This woman, later identified as Ann Petway, wasn't a nurse at all. In fact, she had been lurking around the hospital for 3 weeks, planning something unthinkable. On a quiet night between 2:30 and 3:15 a.m., while the real nurses were changing shifts, Ann made her move. She walked into Carlina's room, removed the baby's IV drip, and slipped out of the hospital unnoticed. There were no working surveillance cameras that night, of course. One security guard said he saw a woman matching Ann's description hurrying out of the building, but he didn't notice a baby. Maybe she hid Carlina under her oversized clothes. By the time the truth came out, Carlina was gone. Just like that, Joy and Carl's newborn daughter had vanished from their arms. Ann Petway raised Carlina as if she were her own daughter. She renamed her Nejdra Nettie Nance and brought her up in Bridgeport, Connecticut, just 45 miles away from where her real parents lived. Think about that for a moment. Joy and Carl spent years searching for their baby, and she was growing up practically in their backyard. Carlina grew up believing Ann was her mother, but deep down, she always had doubts. Whenever she asked Ann for a birth certificate or social security card, Ann never had the answers. Then, in 2005, something happened that would crack the case wide open. At just 16 years old, Carlina got pregnant. She needed her birth certificate to apply for health insurance. She begged Ann for the paperwork. Anne eventually gave her something that looked like a Connecticut birth certificate. However, when Carlina tried to use it, officials informed her that it was a fake. That moment hit her like a ton of bricks. Who was she really? Why didn't she have a real birth certificate? When she confronted Anne, the woman broke down and told Carlina that her real mother was a drug addict who had given her up at birth. It was a lie. But Carlina didn't know that. Not yet. A few years passed, but Carlina couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. At 23 years old, curiosity and suspicion pushed her to dig deeper. She turned to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children's database. Scrolling through old cases, she froze. There it was. A photo of a newborn baby. A baby who looked exactly like her baby photos. And even more chilling, the baby in the photo had the same facial features as her own daughter. Her heart raced. Could this be her? Could she have been kidnapped as a baby? She called the center's hotline. Investigators moved quickly. Carlina's DNA was tested and compared to Joy and Carl Tyson, who never stopped hoping their daughter was alive. The results? A perfect match.
A woman kidnapped as a baby from a Harlem hospital 23 years ago has been reunited with her family. Carlina White was abducted in August 1987 when she was just 19 days old. Carlina had long held suspicions that she did not belong to the family that raised her and began her own investigations.
Oh, thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Father. Thank you. I had a baby the same year. We all did. Carlina is back.
After 23 years, the missing baby was found. The reunion was emotional. Joy and Carl, who had lived through decades of heartbreak, finally hugged their daughter again. As for Ann Petway, the woman who stole Carlina's life, she was arrested and sentenced to 12 years in prison for kidnapping. Carlina White's story is a reminder that the truth can stay hidden for decades, but it always finds a way to surface. Imagine living your whole life thinking you knew who you were, only to discover your identity was stolen before you could even open your eyes. What would you do if this happened to you? Imagine waking up one day and finding out you've been missing for 30 years. Yeah, 30 years. This isn't a movie plot. This is exactly what happened to Steve Carter, a man who thought he knew who he was, until one ordinary day, everything he believed about his life came crashing down. But let's rewind, because this story is stranger than fiction. Steve Carter was 35 years old, just a regular software salesman, living in Philadelphia in 2011. Life was normal, nothing unusual. But then, he heard a news story. A young woman believed she was adopted. She checked an online database of missing kids and found a photo of herself. Now, Steve wasn't the paranoid type. He knew he was adopted, from Honolulu actually. But something about that story, something deep in his gut told him, check the website. And so, he did. What he saw next would change his life forever. There it was. A picture of a little boy. Same eyes, same face, same everything. And next to it, an age-progressed photo of what that boy would look like as an adult. Steve stared at it, and in that instant, he knew, that's me. Can you imagine that moment? Seeing your childhood photo on a missing person's website? Steve was in shock. But once the disbelief wore off, he called Honolulu police. He later said he didn't deserve credit for solving his own case, that law enforcement did the hard work. But it was Steve's courage that cracked open a 30-year mystery. After months of waiting for DNA results, the truth finally came out. His real name? Marks Panama Moriarty Barnes. His parents? Marks Barnes and Charlotte Moriarty. 30 years ago, Charlotte took her baby boy for a walk and never came back. His father reported him missing and spent decades haunted by questions that would never leave him. The details are still unclear. Did Charlotte abandon him? Did she leave him at an orphanage under a fake name because she couldn't be a mother anymore? We may never know for sure. But one thing's certain. Steve Carter's story is proof that the truth has a way of finding you. In a 2012 interview, Steve said he hoped to reconnect with his biological family. Whether or not that happened, his story remains a powerful reminder. Sometimes, all it takes is one search, one photo, to change everything you thought you knew about your life. Imagine losing your child in a busy marketplace and never seeing him again. In 1991, that nightmare became reality for a family in Sichuan, China. A toddler named Sunbin was abducted in broad daylight from a vegetable market. And for nearly 3 decades, his parents had no idea if he was even alive. This is the story of a family torn apart by a single moment, and the remarkable journey that finally brought them back together. It was a normal day for Sunbin's parents, Sun Yu Hua and his wife. They were at the local vegetable market when the unthinkable happened. Their little boy vanished. Panic set in immediately. They scoured every corner of the market, shouting his name, but there was no trace of him. The family dropped everything to search for their child. They organized search parties, posted flyers across towns and villages, and even expanded their search beyond their province. But despite their tireless efforts, Sunbin was never found. Law enforcement eventually declared him presumed dead. But his parents refused to believe that. What they didn't know was that Sunbin had been taken to a coastal town thousands of miles away. He was sold to a family that desperately wanted a child of their own. He grew up there, attended school like any other kid. But by the age of 15, he was pulled out of school and put to work as an electrician. Sunbin always knew he was adopted, but he never asked his new parents about his past. Still, the question of who he was never stopped gnawing at him. Years later, when he was 28, Sunbin's curiosity grew too strong to ignore. He decided to submit a DNA sample to China's National Police database. What happened next would change everything. Not long after, a match was found. Sunbin discovered the truth. He wasn't just adopted, he had been kidnapped. A Chinese website called Baby Come Home, known for reuniting lost children with their families, also played a key role in connecting the dots. After 27 long years, Sunbin was finally reunited with his father. But it was bittersweet. His mother had passed away, never knowing her son was alive. There was a cloud of uncertainty between Sunbin and the family who raised him. His biological father was furious, believing they knew he was kidnapped. But instead of pressing charges, he made a deal. "If you come home and live with me, I will forgive them." Sunbin agreed to spend some time with his biological father. Whether he stayed permanently remains unclear. The case of Sunbin's disappearance is officially closed. The boy who vanished from a marketplace in 1991 is now home. But one question remains. Who took him? To this day, the identity of the kidnappers is still a mystery.